Hi, I'm Mia Parrish, and welcome to Devils in the Details. Today, I have with me Dr. Laura Hosman. She's an associate professor in the School for Future of Innovation in Society, as well as many other amazing titles. But she is the brains behind something called SolarSPELL. It's a solar library that fits in a backpack.
That's right.
Right?
SolarSPELL stands for Solar Powered Educational Learning Library. That's an acronym. And it is an ultra-portable, solar-powered, offline digital library.
Is that an actual,
It's an actual SolarSPELL. Saw the solar panel, right? And then here's the waterproof plastic case.
Okay, that's really cool.
Battery, and it's giving power to this microcomputer that's called a Raspberry Pi. We're actually using it as a server, not a computer. So servers go one directional, and it's serving up the information that's on a micro SD card. If you can almost barely see it there. So wow. The micro SD card, I'll hold up one for really close. The whole library is actually curated onto that micro SD card. So a website and all the content and the operating system for this Raspberry Pi. And it's on right now, so it's actually emitting an offline Wi-Fi hotspot. So you connect to it with any smart device, smartphone, tablet, laptop, computer. As long as it's Wi-Fi enabled and has a web browser, you can connect to this over Wi-Fi, and it looks and feels like you're online even though you're offline.
Wow.
So, because it's portable, self-powered, rugged, we can bring it anywhere on Earth, and it'll just work. The vast majority of places that the SolarSPELLs are schools that lack electricity, internet connectivity, and libraries. And so, you know, we really wanted to bring a technology to places that didn't necessarily have the modern infrastructure that those of us who have the internet are used to. But once you get to those places, you also come to realize that the skills associated with using libraries and internet and web browsers, if you've never had those before, those skills don't just develop automatically. So you need to build those skills, and that takes time. So that's why we always work with partners in the field who can help build those skill sets.
Oh, that's amazing. And you're in how many places now with this?
8 countries in the Pacific Islands and in East Africa, but we have goals of expanding greatly around the world.
And you've got some exciting news around a partnership, I hear, right?
We've been mainly working with Peace Corps volunteers around the world because, as I mentioned, you know, skills don't just present themselves automatically overnight when you've never had access to technologies. And so because those skills take time to build, we have been working with Peace Corps volunteers. So I'm very happy to announce that we've just signed a global strategic partnership with the US Peace Corps, which should allow us to expand SolarSPELL into many more countries around the world. I'm really excited about this. Peace Corps is a global development organization with 60 years of experience in over 60 countries. Their volunteers are actually embedded in remote rural villages around the world. And their development model actually includes that once the volunteers get there, to just listen to their communities for the first 4 months and find out what their needs are, which is a development model that really resonates with me. But I will say that one thing that I've found around the world is that when you're in unconnected communities, one thing that they all have in common is the need for information. So again, we developed a technology that could go anywhere, but the information needs to be localized so that people around the world can find it relevant to them. So that's why we work to localize the library so that people can see themselves in the content that goes on the library and find it useful.
When the students were involved in building it, right? Is that?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, they're involved in every single aspect of SolarSPELL. So from building a better build day even, to curating content, to creating content, writing code and software and making the website easier to use, making videos, traveling with us to the field to carry out training, and then research and impact evaluation. They're involved in every aspect.
And you're in a lot of places that would otherwise really not at all be accessible, like refugee camps.
We do plan to be in a few refugee camps by the end of this year.
Wow.
But you're absolutely right. And I can give another example that is exactly along the lines. I mean, if we're talking about potential climate refugees, when we went to Fiji, we did what we always do with version 1. We asked, what are your information needs? And they came back to us and they said, climate change. So, people in the Pacific Islands are at the forefront of experiencing the effects of climate change, but without internet access, they don't necessarily know why, the science behind it, or how to prepare for, react to, recover from, climate change related extreme weather events. And so combine that with the fact that we were really happy to discover that the Fijian Ministry of Education had placed all of its textbooks online and available. So what we've done in Fiji is to get all of the textbooks on the library and then work to make lesson plans on climate change that not only teach about climate change, but also teach how to use a library. So they refer to supplementary material that might be under environment, or it might be under science, or it might be under geography. And that way people can learn also how to search and how to do research and how to use a library, as well as about climate change.
Right, and reminds me, it's been a interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary process, right?
Yes.
So who else is involved in that?
Absolutely. So the project-based classes that I started leading were in engineering, but my own expertise, my background is not in engineering. So it's been essential for me from day one to have multidisciplinary teams. And of course, by the way, I think that that's the only way that we're going to address the wicked challenges that we're facing in the world today, is by having expertise from all areas. So fortunately at ASU, we have people with expertise from all areas, right? I mean, you need a primary education specialist, check. Nursing instructor, check.
Tell me more about how the Peace Corps partnership is going to work.
Peace Corps wants to be very sure that the things that their volunteers are doing are well received by the communities where they go, and that applies around the world. And so they do want to be very cautious with who they're partnering with and what messages this is sending. But this is a rare occasion where technology that volunteers were using in the field and posts were using, posts meaning countries, were giving positive feedback to headquarters and saying, we're finding success with this SolarSPELL, and the volunteers are finding it very useful to be able to teach in schools, for example. So to be perfectly honest, when I pitched the idea to my students, one thought was, okay, Peace Corps volunteers are generally tech-savvy Americans who are finding themselves without the ability to Google search for the first time in their life. And they're going to another place around the globe and need to be able to Google search for, all of this information that they don't have access to all of a sudden. And so we started thinking, let's develop a library that will be useful for them. But of course, as soon as we started down that path, we realized that it could also serve the purpose of being a library for all the people who have never had internet access before. It can do that simultaneously at the same time, quite straightforwardly. And so that's what we're aiming to have it be, is the library that's appropriate for that school or for that country at that time. The Global Strategic Partnership will allow us, it basically gives us a green light to work with posts around the world, Peace Corps countries around the world.
That's amazing. I mean, so what do you need to make an even bigger impact with SolarSPELL?
Well, my vision for this at ASU is that we'll be able to develop a rapid response task force of students, faculty, staff that can respond to library requests as they arise. Once people have this in their hands and have started using it, that's when they can truly articulate what's missing and what they would like to see on a future version of the library.
No, it's a really amazing program. It's the partnership itself is really exciting, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining us and being a part of it and being a part of this project and helping change so many lives.